think we're just about ready to get started. I think so. Hello there, welcome back to Max's Writing Advice Q&A. In tonight's episode, I have a nicely randomly selected selection of questions sent by viewers like you. As always, remember that if you have a writing advice question you would like to send my way, do so in the comments down below. Questions are picked randomly every week, 3 questions, 3 minutes a pop, so your questions are as likely to be picked as anyone else. Now, before I go on with the questions of today's very special episode, allow me to give you the disclaimer, as always, and remind you that the following is merely just my advice, my opinion, and what works for me. Don't take it as gospel, instead take it as the ramblings of a silly person who really likes Shovel Knight. Shovel Knight. Oh, Shovel Knight. I love you so much. But anyhow, let's take it from the top. The first question goes a little bit like this. What would you say is the best way to keep yourself motivated to keep on writing? 3 minutes on the clock, get set, go! First and foremost, I would like to just take a moment and remind you, as always, that while I have my advice and the things that work for me, remember that they're just that. I'm gonna tell you what I think is the best way to stay motivated, in my own opinion. Ultimately, it's entirely likely, don't mind my phone just falling off onto my keyboard. Did that cancel my recording? Let's hope not. It did it! Yeah! Am I gonna count it into the timer? Who knows? I want to inspire you to find the things that work the best for you. It's one of those realizations where, like, I can give you advice, but it's ultimately what works for me, you know? Find what works for you, inspect your feelings very closely, and seek to find a way that works just for you, or ultimately for you, because every writer is different. Now. I always give that disclaimer, I want to just give it there. Now, what do I use? What is the best way for me to stay motivated? Oh, there's only one way. The one and only music. Music is such an important and really close element of my writing process, where I'm always listening to music when I'm writing. I set up writing playlists that compile all of the music that remind me of a story, the music for a particular chapter, and the music that just inspires me to write. I've given this advice in the past before, but it's been a while, so I'm gonna revise it again. Max, how do you make the playlist for your stories? Well, when I think of my stories, I like to take a moment and consider of all of the games, anime, shows, movies that share similar feelings. Not exactly the same tone or the same genre, but feeling. Would you want that same feeling, an idea that, like, it makes you think of that game, show, movie when you listen to the music, and I like to find those soundtracks and compile them into a playlist. And whenever I sit down to write, I grab music and I put it on, or whenever I want to just get hyped, get excited to write, I reach forward to the inspirational tracks, the ones that generally have lyrics to them. And I do the thing where I picture my characters having the opening for the anime or the opening for the show, and I see them being awesome and amazing, and that reminds me of why I'm doing this, because I love those characters and I want them to be awesome and amazing, and it's kind of like my hype ritual, I guess, just to get excited for writing. So to answer your question relatively shorter, in less words, music. Music is at the key of motivation for me. You know, whenever I feel down, I just take a moment, close my eyes, put on headphones, and just play those 2 or 3 tracks that excite me to write the story. Those 3 tracks that, like, the music may not even belong to the world, and the lyrics may even make sense, but it's all about the feeling. The feeling that music evokes, and the connection that I've made with that feeling, and the characters and the world, and the story itself. And it's maybe a little awkward, because maybe you were expecting a much more practical piece of advice, but for me, it's always music. Always. And with that said, let's move over to the second question. Heads up, I had to summarize it to, make it a little bit shorter. I hope you don't mind. It goes a little bit like this. My problem is, I've done more world building than anything else for outlining, and now the story feels pointless. I have some characters and a couple of ways it could progress, but when I sit down to work on it, I feel like the characters don't fit the world. I know you keep saying that stories are nothing without characters, and I agree 100%, but I'm not sure if I should just set this aside for now, or try to come up with, and by that I mean find it in my brainy parts, characters to fit in the world. Any advice? Oh, I do have advice. 3 minutes on the clock, get set, go! First off, for anyone who may be in the planning stages of a novel, I have a really good planning guide for that. Find it in my channel. Anyways, this is basically why I recommend to not do a lot of world building. It's not because I have anything against world building. I think world building is important, but when you do a lot of it and you dedicate a lot of time to world building, you create an impression of the world, and you don't allow the story to surprise you or to fill in the holes for you. And you can end up in situations where, like, you're in the middle of writing and a character contradicts something that you wrote in the outline regarding the world building. And at that point, you either stop to check the facts, to make sure that everything is okay, or you just stop, period, and you lose momentum. You lose momentum, you get out of the writing mind, and you have basically brought the entire story to a halt. Why? Because something you said earlier is being contradicted. As I said in the past, the characters are always right, and that is why I prefer to stick to minimal world building, just enough to have answers to the questions that I may have in the back of my mind. Now, that's for anyone who may be even remotely getting into the situation. For the person who sent this question, my feelings are as follows. Now, to be entirely honest, this question is a little bit difficult for me to answer because generally I begin with characters. I always begin with characters, and the world is the backstage. It's the stage in which the play takes place. That's why I never put it before the characters. That being said, I can displace my own feelings and try to give you objective advice, or as objective as I can make it. I feel that if you really like this world and you've created something that you're proud of and you really, really like it and you want to tell stories in that place, I think that's the most important one. If you really want to tell stories in this place, I think it is entirely okay for you to find characters that work in this world. Not only that they work, but that they belong in this world. Not that they fit, not that they work, not that they seem as though they are part of this, but that they belong in it. They're a part of this world. And then start telling their story. I know that this world may seem really interesting and really cool and that you love it, and there's nothing wrong with that, but focus on telling those characters' stories, because at least from my point of view, the world and the setting are just that. The place in which the story takes place. It's the backdrop to the stage in which the play of your story takes place. Again, that's just my feelings. I've always been like this. I think characters are at the center of storytelling, and if you're in a situation in which you feel that the two pieces that you have, the characters and the setting, don't fit, and I think you have to analyze which one you like the most, and seek to find the missing piece to them. If you love the characters, find the setting where they belong, and if you like the setting, find characters that belong in that setting. Simple as that, okay? And just one more little thing, because I feel like I rushed at the end there. One more time just to clarify. Take that setting that you like, and find characters that belong there. Characters that are actively part of this world. Not just people who, fit in or work, people that actually belong, and tell their story. And start making it about them, because you're going to go in circles if you keep making the story about the world, because while it may seem really cool and large, the world itself can't change by itself, because ultimately it is characters and people who change the world, okay? And now for the final question of the day. It is a really interesting one and a really fun one, and we're going back to the realm of revision/editing with a question that goes a little bit like this. Hi Max, so I am in the 8th draft of my story, and I am at that point where literally my biggest goal for this draft is making sure the sentences aren't too complex, because I tend to write in super complex sentences. But that's it. The plot, the characters, descriptions, all of that my beta readers haven't been able to find fault in. But looking at sentence structure isn't very creative. It's actually boring, which makes me not want to do it. How do you make editing like this fun? 3 minutes on the clock, get set, go. Okay, first off, really quickly, before I actually give you my advice, because it's really straightforward. Someone out there told you that your sentence structure was too complex. If you can still find them, ask them why they think it's complex, because what do you mean by your sentence structure is complex? Because I'm not projecting, I'm not trying to be mean. In my personal experience, whenever I hear pieces of advice like that, like someone says your writing is X or Y and they don't explain it, that to me has always been like really bad feedback, because if you tell somebody that their writing is something and you don't offer a solution, you may as well not have said anything. Do you use big words? Do you use small words? Do you use a lot of commas and semicolons? Like, what makes your writing complex, and why is that a bad thing? If your writing is complex because you have a lot of particles, such as commas and commas and commas and semicolons all in the same sentences, then my piece of advice may be more effective than I imagined. But aside from for language issues, I think it may be part of how you write. I don't know. I don't want to give you a solution to a problem that you're actually already taking care of. Just analyze why somebody told you that and if you actually believe in it, okay? Now, how do you make editing like this fun? If you're in the 8th draft, props for making it this far and being dedicated. That within itself is really awesome. How do you make looking or analyzing sentence structure fun? And to that I have one piece of advice. Probably the best piece of advice that I have for editing, period. If only my hair would behave. And that piece of advice is to read your work out loud. I've said this a million times and I'm gonna say it again. If you read your work out loud, you will be able to spot a lot of things that the eye or simply silently reading it may never reveal. And the other thing that really helps for me is not only reading it out loud, but reading it in front of a mirror and pretending that you're reading it to an audience. Pretending that you're doing that book signing thing and you're actually reading a part of your story, to the crowd. Putting yourself in that mental moment of pressure may give you the insight to realize, wait a minute, this sentence is really hard to read out loud. There is no point for pause. Where am I supposed to breathe in this entire sentence through all these commas and punctuation? And you know what? This sentence here is too long. This is too short. When you read your work silently or you just read it visually, your brain starts doing that thing where it starts to memorize it. It starts to memorize it and it stops looking for mistakes or stops looking for things to fix. But putting yourself in a moment of pressure and actually forcing yourself to read it out loud. Don't read it in a quiet voice. Read it as though you're doing a presentation. You're reading it before a crowd. And that mindset may help you realize that certain sentences are too long, too short, or certain word usage is just a little bit awkward. Because, as I've said a million times in the past, if you read it out loud and it sounds good, then it most definitely reads good. And that's about all the time that we have for today. I want to thank you for watching. If you have questions of your own that you would like to see me answer in a future video, leave them in the comments down below, as well as your thoughts on the questions that were answered today. What do you think about the questions that were answered today? Do you have your own personal way of staying motivated? What is your advice for editing into the 8th draft? Let us know in the comments down below. But for the time being, again, thank you for watching, thank you for spending a little bit of your day with me, and I'll see you on the next one.